Good morning. It's great to see you all here today. Thank you for joining us, and a special thank you to any of you who came to check things out for the first time online or in the room. We appreciate your trust and courage in checking out something new. And by the way, if you are fairly new, we'd love to connect with you. As you might have heard earlier, Nikki said just scan the QR code on the seat back in front of you. If you're in the room, if you're online, just click the link. Give us a little information. We'll follow up with you. And I know you're dying to know what is in this bag. So I'm going to show you. This, yes, there's a story behind that. And this, in case you're wondering, some of you know what this is. Oh, all the keys got stuck together. You know what that's like, too. All right. This, 50 years ago, was technology. Now, there's a story. This was actually the typewriter that got me through undergrad. Yes. Apparently, the ribbon has dried out. I didn't know they didn't last that long. Anyway, still kind of works, but you just have to assume that it's ready. And this was a phone that I got for my wife because she was a year ahead of me, and we were going to be apart for the next year. We were just engaged, and so this was how we communicated with each other. High technology. Spent a lot of money, by the way, long-distance calls, if you remember back in the day. Some of you are as old as I am. This was technology 50 years ago. 100 years before that, technology might have looked like a teletype machine and a camera, early kind of camera. And thousands of years before that, if we would go back to the time of Jesus, technology might have looked like things like a press release or a news bulletin, It might have looked like glass blowing, which was invented around the time of Jesus in that era. It might have looked like the first steam turbine, which you can look that up if you want to know what that looked like 2,000 years ago. Technology is this interesting, moving kind of part of life for us. Technology has been described as a machine, a piece of equipment, a method, or etc., that is created by the practical application of scientific knowledge. Technology is fascinating, sometimes helpful, sometimes confusing. It can increase our productivity, our capacity, our imagination. But one way or the other, we all end up developing some kind of relationship with technology. It could be good, could be bad, like a lot of relationships we have with other people, right? Some of them are good, some of them really bad. And we're in this series called Relatable, and we're trying to wrestle with how do we develop healthy relationships in our life. And you might not have thought about technology as being something you relate to, but you do. I'm going to meddle a little bit today. Is that okay? Yeah. Somebody's like, I'm out. So the question for us, technology, like a lot of things, it can be a tool or it can be a toxin. And I want to ask you this question this morning. What is your relationship with technology? How would you describe that? How would you define that? Now, you might be thinking, Pastor Mark, this is a church. We're here to hear about Jesus. And I've spent a little bit of time studying Jesus' life and words and teaching. And he doesn't actually say a lot about technology. So, why are we talking about this? Because Jesus did talk a lot about humanity and what it means to be real human and live a human life. And technology intersects with that. Jesus had some interesting things to say to people who had developed some unhealthy relationships with other things, in particular traditions and rituals and beliefs. And so I want to start with that passage, that conversation, that comment that Jesus made, because I think it bears fruit for us in this arena that we want to talk about, which is our relationship with technology. In John chapter 8, verse 36, Jesus said this, "If the Son sets you free, you will be free indeed." And so I want to ask ourselves this question: is that still possible? Are we actually free? So here's the situation that it seems to me. Some of you are familiar, most of you are probably familiar with the story or the parable about the frog in the kettle, right? And like you put the frog in the water and you slowly turn the heat up, and he doesn't know that it's getting hotter and hotter until it's finally too late to jump out. You've heard this story, right? Yes? Okay. Here's the thing. Technology can become the kettle. Because we don't realize it. We're in it, and we get drawn in, and it seems innocent, and it's fine. And then slowly, the heat goes up and up and up and up until it's just kind of doing destructive things to us. Am I talking to anybody? The technology challenge for many of us, not all, might look like this. Some of you are looking at yours right now. It started as a convenience. It started as a way to reach out in an emergency if something bad were to happen. And then it slowly moved into more and more areas of our life until it gets to the point for many of us where we can't imagine life without it. True confession. Like when I upgrade my phone, I don't trade in the old one, even though they'll give me money for it. You know why? Because I'm afraid if something happens to this, I won't have a backup. Any of you, are you with me? Like I have to, like it has become for many of us, like we have battery chargers all over the place and charging cables and all kinds of ways of keeping us connected to something that for many of us, like we don't even realize it. We're the frog, we're in the kettle, the water has gone up and up and up, and it's compromising who we are as people, and we don't even realize it. One author referred to this as something called ediction. Ediction. Addicted to something electronic. I didn't make up that word, but I'm like, yeah, that sounds right. And it's almost as though for many of us, and again, it doesn't have to be this technology, right? It could be a game controller, it could be your smart TV, it could be some other technology that has worked its way into your life. But somebody has said this device, for many of us, is almost like a slot machine. I mean, yes, I realize you can't actually gamble on this, but that's not what they were talking about. They're saying the way this has morphed in our world and in our culture and in our lives, it operates the same way that slot machines do in a casino. In other words, it gives you unpredictable rewards, that intermittent reward system that those of you know how the brain works, you understand, yeah, that's what happens. It balances hope and frustration. You scroll, you don't like this, you scroll, hopefully next time something better will come up, right? It activates the reward system in your brain. You get these dopamine hits. This is what happens in a casino with the slot machines, which is why people can sit there forever and ever and ever. There are no clocks in there. There's like time just ceases. And that's what happens to us oftentimes with these devices. I came across the story of a guy named Carlos Whitaker, a podcaster, an author, interesting guy. I'm just going to share a little bit of his story because I think it highlights why this is an important relationship to pay attention to. He said he received a notice that he was averaging over 7 hours a day on his phone. That's a lot of hours, by the way. To confront this, he embarked on a 7-week experiment where he completely disconnected from technology. He spent time in a monastery. He spent time living with an Amish family. And he underwent medical brain scans to track the results. He says that after the first few days of his putting this away and not having any technology, it had Physical manifestations. He had night sweats, heart palpitation, shakiness, and shortness of breath. Like this is how technology can actually become a very unhealthy relationship. He spent 23 hours a day in silence at the monastery, and he discovered that solitude raises the volume of God's voice, which we'll come back to that. He lived on a sheep farm. He learned how to prioritize communal meals, spending 90 minutes per meal just conversing with people in community. The baseline brain scans that he did before this found that his cognitive memory was in the 50th percentile. After 7 weeks of digital detox, he moved to the 99th percentile. Like this has an impact on our bodies, on our brains, on our humanity. And you might be thinking, Pastor Mark, I don't have a problem. So I just want to run a little quiz by you. You okay with us? So this is a quiz, and I want you to just do the math in your head or on your fingers, or I suppose you could use your digital device if you needed to. So I have 10 questions, and I just want you to think, how many of these questions are a yes for you? Okay? So here we go. We're going to put these on the screen. Do you ever interrupt a conversation with your partner or children to take a call? If yes, that's 1. Number 2, have you ever regretted sending a text or email? Do you check emails for several hours a day? Do you find yourself distracted by social media sites when you should be doing something else? Have you ever failed to notice what someone was doing or saying because you were concentrating on your phone or your computer? Diane, don't answer that. I'm guilty of these, right? Have you ever become deeply angry and frustrated by technology? Have you ever used technology to avoid talking face to face? Have you ever communicated the same point using more than one method, like you text, and then you send a voicemail, and then you send an email? Like, okay. Does your desire to stay in the loop distract you from the people who matter the most? Have you ever been the victim of an online scam? And then I have one more question that's not on the board. Have you ever experienced phantom buzzing in your pocket? Your phone isn't even there, and you can feel it calling you. Now, if you answered yes to 3 or more of those, you might have an unhealthy relationship with technology. It might be time to revisit that and figure out how to develop a healthy relationship. I like what Jesus had to say in Matthew chapter 10, verse 16. He said to his followers, I'm sending you out like sheep among wolves. Therefore, be shrewd as snakes. Other translations say be wise as serpents. It's that same word of wise that Jesus says, hey, the foolish builder built his house on the sand, but the wise person built it on the solid rock. Be wise as serpents and innocent as doves. So in this relationship with technology, how do we get there? How do we become wiser and have a healthier relationship? And so I want to suggest it starts by understanding this. What you platform will form you. What you platform in your life, in your schedule, in your calendar, in your hours of each day, what you platform is going to form you into a certain kind of person. What you place at the center of your life, and this is not related just to technology. This could be with your career, with your wealth, with your physical appearance, with your influence status, with your likes and followers, with your material possessions and your reputation. Whatever you platform and put at the center of your life, that will form you into being a certain kind of person. Another way of saying it is we become like what we worship. And it occurs to me that this might be why Jesus made the comments that he did to a certain young man who was apparently doing very well and successful and very wealthy. And he came to Jesus and he said, hey, what do I have to do to really get the good life? And this is Jesus' comment in Mark chapter 10, verses 21 and following. Jesus looked at him and said, and loved him, and said, one thing you lack. Go sell everything you have and give to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come follow me. Why did Jesus say this to him? Not to anybody else, to him. At this, the man's face fell. He went away sad because he had great wealth. And the problem that Jesus recognized for this guy is that was at the center of his life. That was what he platformed, and that was forming him into a certain kind of person. And he wanted to be something else. And Jesus said, get that off the platform. And then we can work on helping you become who you really want to be. So, technology, like so many other things in life, has the capacity to form us into a certain kind of people. So here are some of the ways that can happen. It can replace scriptural devotion with algorithms, right? Algorithms, as many of us know, are these complex, computerized kind of systems that figure out what you like to see or engage with, and it gives you more and more of that, and it takes our attention away. And it's not saying you have to spend all day meditating on one verse, although that wouldn't be a bad idea. But what happens is it's really hard to do that when the algorithms keep drawing our attention and our mind and eventually our heart away, and they are forming us into a certain kind of people. We spend more time scrolling than we do thinking about what God might be saying into our lives. I told you I was going to meddle, right? You remember that? Okay, all right, so got really quiet in the room. Here's another way, the pursuit of godlike knowledge and control. Like, this is part of how technology can form us. It offers this illusion of control and the drug of knowledge, as one person put it. It can be addictive. I mean, you can find anything on your phone, right? You can find a YouTube video to help you figure out anything and fix anything and build anything and do anything and whatever it happens to be. And the illusion is that we now have this all-powerful knowledge, but we really don't often have the wisdom to know how to use all that information. And as one person referred to it, they said, what this leads to is something called infobesity. Infobesity. We are beyond obese when it comes to information. But it's not healthy. This is one of the ways technology can form us when it gets platformed. Another way is by idolizing busyness. Modern culture often treats productivity and constant connectivity as ultimate goods, leading to the idolization of busyness. Like, if I can just be more productive and more busy, that's the goal that I'm after. But in this framework, guess what gets lost? Boredom, rest, reflection. These are important concepts for spiritual formation in the way of Jesus. So, we will be formed by what we platform. And here's what we forget. Right? It's not as though God is sitting there kind of pouting, saying, but I want to be in first place. I think it's far more significant than that. It's that idols and technology can become this. Idols have a way of defacing and deforming our humanity. Think of God as the artist and you are his craftsmanship, and God is watching as something else gets platformed and your humanity becomes defaced and deformed. If you were an artist, you would not be thrilled about that either. Here's some of the ways that happens. Our capacity for community gets eroded. We struggle to interact with others if it isn't mediated with some kind of technology. But we're created for community, for connecting with other humans. When we are constantly distracted, as one writer called it, we succumb to continuous partial attention, CPA. We're there, but we're not really there. Have you had that experience? You're talking with someone and you realize they're kind of paying attention, but they're kind of also watching their technology. The phone is on the table. Continuous partial attention. It erodes our capacity to connect as humans with one another. The message that it sends is there might be something more important than my conversation with you. Have you been there? Does that feel good? No, it shouldn't. And this is part of how we are being formed, and like our humanity is being eroded in this. Another way that it's eroded is our capacity for connection with God. Like, I don't think you can multitask and hear God's voice. I think it requires a little bit more quiet and reflection and solitude. And those are really hard to find when technology gets platformed the way that it does for many of us. That still small voice, as sometimes God's voice is referred to, gets drowned out in a landscape where there's more and more voices and everything goes faster and faster. Like, sometimes we want to speed up our technology because it doesn't go fast enough. Like, make the video play faster. Like, give me a summary. Okay, like that need for busy, fast, more, faster. Like that reduces and erodes our capacity to connect with God, and that's what we were created for. That's part of how we become truly human. And the other way that it reduces, defaces, deforms our humanity is it erodes our capacity for contemplation, for thinking, for reflecting. Deep thinking and creating, they're just not possible in that kind of environment. But that's how we were designed. That's where we flourish as humans. Most of us probably can think back to a time where we didn't have the technological interruptions and we had some moments. Maybe we were on a long walk. Maybe we were on a weekend retreat. Maybe we were, our device broke and we found ourselves in that space where we could think and we could reflect. And that's part of humanity that gets lost when technology gets platformed the way that it does. So, your relationship with technology, what is that like? How platformed has it become in our lives? And like, I understand, it has tremendous potential, but sometimes it needs a little restraint. And so I want to suggest that we can build a cage for the beast. If we want to tame the technology beast, maybe we need to build some kind of a cage. Maybe it looks like this. I'm going to leave that up there for a minute. By the way, I learned just this past week that there is a chain of fast food restaurants that were offering something called a cell phone coop, like a chicken coop. That might tell you which restaurant it was. I actually went to the local franchise to ask him if I could get one of these cardboard cell phone coops, and the manager was like, I've never heard of this before. I went online and realized there's only a handful around the country that are doing this, and the closest one was about an hour's drive away. I didn't want to drive that far, so I made this up. So anyway, but the idea is how do we put some constraints on a technology that is defacing our humanity, that's creating an unhealthy relationship? And I'm not suggesting that we go back to the horse and buggy. Like, there are ways that I think we can implement that are going to help us, practical ways. So the people who study these kind of areas, and I am not one of them, offer a number of different suggestions. I'm going to try and synthesize some of those here real briefly with the time we have remaining. Several places where you and I can bring change into our life that's going to help cage this technology so that it no longer takes over our lives. We want a healthier relationship. So the first one is this, to change your physical habits, right? So one, like, I don't know that I could do this, but people have suggested, like, taking the phone, this particular technology beast, and leaving it outside of the bedroom. I don't know how people live like that, but apparently it can be done and it can be helpful. And there are these things called analog, or like digital clocks that are just a clock. I think there's actually one in my bedroom, right? And so you're like, how will I get up in the morning? The same way that we did 50 years ago when we used these is you just have a digital clock. You can probably find them at the thrift store for $3.99. So that is one way, because what happens is the first time, like, you wake up in the morning and you're looking at this. Somebody said it's like staring a bear in the face every morning as soon as you wake up. Like, it activates the fight or flight syndrome in us. That's not healthy for us. So that's one time. Other people have suggested, taking a digital fast, maybe for a half a day a week or a day a week or a few hours, where you say, I'm going to turn this off. They do have off buttons. I'm going to turn this off and see how that impacts my life. So create some physical kinds of boundaries for you. Consider even switching to what are called dumb phones, right, that don't have all the devices. You can still call and text, but it doesn't have all the distractions on there. So there are ways that you can choose to put this beast in a cage so that it serves you instead of you serving it. Another one is digital boundaries, right? Like no screen time for the first hour of the day, or no screens at the dinner table, or whatever that happens to be. Find ways, like, you can create these boundaries. You can figure out, you can try things, you can experiment, you can learn from others. Like, these are ways that you and I can take specific steps. I'm going to change some things that I'm doing now because I want a healthier relationship with technology. I'm not going to throw this out, but I'm going to learn how to build a better relationship with it. Managing the noise of devices is crucial. Maybe even put it on Do Not Disturb. And the very important people in your life will come through, and the rest will just be there when you're ready for them, instead of this constant interruption. Because that's what many of us deal with. It takes your brain 20 minutes to refocus on what you were doing every time you get interrupted. Is it a challenge? Is it a surprise, that we struggle with focusing and getting important things done when we're constantly being bombarded and notified? And by the way, those little notifications, they're not an accident. Those were put there by very smart people who want you to spend a lot more time on your phone. And you think it's a convenience. It can be. It can also be an unhealthy relationship. Just saying. The last thing we can change is our mental framework, right? How do we regain control over our attention, over our well-being? Someone has said, instead of using a phone as a digital pacifier, there's a phrase, every time there's a little discomfort or a little impatience, right? You're standing in the line, it's taking an extra 30 seconds. I can't deal with this. And so we grab the pacifier. Maybe allow yourself time to embrace a little wondering, a little boredom. We're terrified of being bored. And yet that's oftentimes one of the healthiest things for our minds and our bodies. You can even choose analog alternatives. You could read a paper book. They still make them. This is just one example. And maybe take a few minutes every day to say, how do I want to engage with technology today? Do I want to set boundaries today? Do I want to have some time when I'm not? Those are choices we can make that will help put this beast in a cage so that it no longer controls our lives. And I would say this too, right? Prioritize presence in your physical relationships, right? Screen-free meal times. Look people in the eye when you're speaking with them. Last week we looked at this passage. I want to pull it back up again here today as we're finishing. In Ephesians chapter 4, Paul the Apostle writes this: "You were taught with regard to your former way of life, put off your old self, which is being corrupted by its deceitful desires, and be made new in the attitude of your minds, and put on the new self, created to be like God in true righteousness and holiness." About it, when we do baptism here, this is one of the things we say, right? Buried with Christ, raised to new life. Like, we have the option to live a new life. This is what Jesus offers us. We're made to be new. Hope starts here in this sense of being new. Of like, we don't have to continue to live the old way. We can make changes by the power of God's Spirit, by the wisdom of God's Word. Technology can be a wonderful tool. It can help us accomplish incredible things. It can be a tool, or it can be a toxin. The people in the scientific community have a saying: the dose makes the poison. The dose makes the poison. What's the dosage for you? Is it toxic? Is it a healthy relationship? Ask yourself, am I the frog in the kettle? Have I not realized how the temperature has continued to erode and degrade my humanity? And be honest with yourself. What are you platforming in your life? If you were to look at your own life, your own schedule, your own calendar, your own day-to-day activities, what's at the center? And be honest with yourself. And then figure out what steps for you today and this week. What steps can you take? What changes can you make to put the technology beast in a cage so that it serves you instead of you serving it? Let's pray together. God, this is a 21st century conversation for sure, and yet it's also timeless. Because as humans, we have always been tempted to put other things on the platform and to center our lives around them. And God, this particular challenge is unique for us, but it's a real challenge. And we believe that Jesus offers freedom even from this. So God, help us to be honest in our evaluations. Help us to encourage one another. Help us to experience your grace when we stumble and struggle and don't always get it right. But God, give us the wisdom that Jesus talks about, to be wise as serpents and to know how to use available technology for things that really matter, not just in our own lives, but in this world that you have called us to serve and to love. We pray this all. We ask in Jesus' name.